And welcome to the Striped Onion Show, where we peel them back good. And now to our host, the man with the plan, Sergeant Peel.
All right. We are back once again. Another great show. So this is one of my friends. We still call it a southern state, but it's Kentucky. A friend of mine, Kelli Robinson, a great mental health professional, a part of a great group of people and peers in Kentucky. Like I said, KYLEAP. She's got some fabulous insight when it comes to the world of family, first responders, and mental health. That's the best way I can describe it. So I'm looking forward to y'all hearing this show. But as always, do me a solid favor right now. Hit that share button. I don't care what platform you're listening on. Hit that share button. Send it right across all them social media channels, and let's get the word out. That's what we got to do. So without further ado, let's get right to the show with Kelli. Welcome back, y'all. You just don't understand. This is one of my good friends right here, Kelli. I'm so glad to see your beautiful face. Kelli's a longtime friend of mine. I told y'all in the intro, she's one of the good ones. I've said that about my other guests, but she really is one of the good ones. She's one of those ones that, and I might even go into the level of she might have forgot more than several of us know. I mean, she's one of those good ones. So Kelli, how are you this morning? How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Sarge. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk, and your kind words are just beyond belief.
Hey, I appreciate it. Kelli always, she blesses a bunch of us with little gifts here and there. And I'm going to tell you, the beer cheese, I think, is the most fabulous gift I've seen show up several times. There's been other gifts, but I can tell you from this household, the beer cheese has been a hit. I love it every time I see it. So again, thank you for doing that. That's always wonderful. It's always welcomed, and I appreciate you for that and for thinking of us. So how's beautiful Kentucky doing?
Well, Kentucky is doing much better than it has been the past few weeks. We actually have some sunshine outside, which is it's wonderful. We're actually aiming towards about 60-degree weather this coming up week, which is a big change from the fact that we had a lot of snow and then we had ice. And this past week, we've had just tremendous flooding. So the eastern part of the state, the waters are just beginning to fall and go down, and now they're able to get in and see what destruction that those poor folks have had to deal with and will have to deal with for weeks to come. It's just sad, you look at the amount of people who've lost homes, who've lost parts of their community, lost their businesses, and on top of a pandemic of all things.
Yeah.
So Kentucky is rallying back, though. I mean, we get in there and help one another, as I know they do in South Carolina and throughout the United States. And that's just what we do as people.
Well, Kelli, take a minute. Tell us about your background. You already kind of brought up the topic on where we're going to go today, talking about dealing with not just the pandemic, but from a mental health standpoint, because your field. But talking about stuff like natural disasters. I mean, we're dead on target with already talking about what we're going to do. But introduce yourself real quick. Tell us about your background, if you will, for just a minute.
Sure. My name is Kelli, obviously, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am the oldest of 3 kids, and I say kids. I'm not a kid anymore, I don't think. Would like to be.
You can always act like it, though. The beer cheese makes it fun all the time. So
that's right. That's it. Exactly. I think, your age is just a frame of mind. If you look at yourself and you say, oh, I'm 59, then you can choose to either be 59 or you can choose to continue to live your life and be a free spirit. And so I think that's what I try to do. It's just a frame of mind. Sometimes I turn around and I think, am I really that old? And then I'm like, yes, I am. In certain aspects, I begin to feel that daily. But getting back to what you asked, Isn't that the truth? So it's kind of interesting. I grew up with my mother and my stepfather, who is more of a father to me. And they both have MBAs. My stepfather has a doctorate in human resources. My brother and my sister are all in finance or in business. I'm not. I'm the oddball out. The only way I figured that I ended up maybe getting this social service and this need to help others may have come from my biological father, who was a firefighter. And I remember, and you may have heard this story, I remember going to the fire department when I was a younger child, and my father was 6'3", 6'4", and I can remember him lifting me up onto that pole and me squealing as I went down that pole. I have vivid memories of him putting me in his boots and pulling those boots around as I clopped through the firehouse. I'm going to really age myself. I can remember him putting me up in the front of the fire truck and me ringing the bell. So that is old time, I know. So I think I probably got a lot of that from my father. My paternal grandmother, I think I have a lot of her personality. She was just a very caring, loving person who would give you the shirt off her back. And I think she pretty much kind of instilled a lot of that in me. My mother and my stepfather instilled independence and making sure that I not only give to others, but that I also take care of myself. I've done a lot of work throughout the years working with children in a psychiatric residential treatment facility for boys ages 6 to 12 who had severe behavioral health problems. I've worked in foster care, and also I have worked with adults that have developmental and intellectual disabilities. And I think probably while those are all very rewarding jobs, I think the one that I have enjoyed the most, however, and that really hits close to my heart, is the work that I get to do with first responders, particularly with the law enforcement community, with their spouses, as well as, with the agency that we have, we work not only with all first responders, but we also work with the community after a disaster, with businesses, with school shootings, with schools where maybe they've had kids that have taken their lives, or faculty who've taken their lives, parents who maybe have died, going in and being able to help those individuals to have some type of normalcy. And you mentioned CISM, and CISM, really, the critical incident stress management, is something that really helps provide that ability to help individuals to understand that a lot of the things that they're going through are normal reactions. They're common reactions to things. And it doesn't mean that there has to be a stigma around getting that help. It's helping that individual. And so my biggest, honor and my biggest humility is being accepted by the law enforcement community and being able to work with them and give back to people. So that's just, kind of a little bit about me. I have a dog and a cat. I have a partner of 24 years.
So you better get it right. You're going to get in trouble.
I know. I know. So that's kind of me in a little bit of a nutshell.
Well, I do appreciate you spreading that out and telling us and loving on us with that. So the bigger thing, obviously, that we want to get on with the show is talking about what you hit on right there. Your specialty being family, your agency, especially with natural disasters and stuff like that, with everything that's going on And it's not just Kentucky, and it's not that I brought
No.
Kelli to the show because of Kentucky. This entire nation over the
Yes.
past month, just dealing with the snow and ice disasters that showed up all across the nation, and on top of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So the topic obviously is that we wanted to get into not just the stress management side of it, but little things that might help as you go through recovering from a natural disaster. So if you're one of our SRSers and you're listening to this show, I mean, do understand, first off, hearts and prayers and thoughts are with you, because if you're going through a natural disaster right now on top of the pandemic, then we obviously want you to know that we're thinking of you. We're praying for you, and we're wishing the best for you. But do know that there are resources out there. If you are struggling, there's first responders. This is the other thing. There's first responders and military that most of the time typically leave their homes and their families to go help the other ones, to not even care about their own homes. We saw that in the Carolinas several years ago when we had several first responders leave their homes to go serve the emergency communities that they were working in, only to come back to find their homes either underwater, flooded, or gone.
Absolutely.
And that was one of our big resources to respond to. So, Kelli, that's what I wanted us to talk about. So as things go forward, and you, like you said, y'all are really in the beginning of recovering just on the eastern side of Kentucky. It's no different in Texas as it is anywhere else in the nation. What's some of the pointers that you could throw toward? It doesn't have to be just first responder families. It could be just someone in the community, the military members that are, I mean, you talk about, not you, but we've talked about like the National Guard that's still in DC right now.
Yes.
They're not near their homes. They have no clue what their homes are looking like, especially if they're single family homes. So
absolutely.
What's some pointers you can throw at these friends of ours or SOSers out there?
Sure. So, this is going to sound like the simplest thing, but for first responders and many of us, it's very difficult, and probably one of the hardest things to do is you have to take care of yourself first and foremost. Make sure that you're getting that sleep, make sure that you're getting that food, make sure that you're getting something to drink. Those things are going to help keep you healthy. They're going to help keep you moving. They're going to help keep you functioning. It may seem like a simple thing, but how many times, do we get wrapped up in things, and later on in the day, you think to yourself, gosh, I've got a headache, or I don't feel so great. And then you begin to think back and you're like, man, when was the last time I actually had something to eat or drink?
Mm-hmm.
And that's vital. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, what's worked for you in the past? What are some of the coping things that you have used in the past that have actually worked for you? If those things have worked, try using those now too. They may or may not help, but if they have helped in the past, then chances are it's going to be a lot easier to be able to move forward. I think one of the biggest things is that you have to remember, this is going to be a process, and it's a grief process. And anybody who's been through grief, and I would dare to say probably all of us have, we know it's not a simple 1, 2, 3 and you're done. Oh, let's see, this happened on Monday, and so, we should be done by Friday. Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could get through grief that easily? But we can't. We're human beings. We feel, we think, we hurt. We go through those same emotions. And so I like to think of grief, and many other people do, and I am by far not the expert on grief. I'll leave that to the experts, such as Dr. Teresa Rondo, who's an expert in grief.
And we've talked about her before on the show. Love Miss Terry. I call her Miss Terry.
I do too. I do too.
We're going to have her on the show. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, she's a wonderful woman. But I think about the fact that it really is like a roller coaster. 1 minute you may be positive and thinking, okay, it could have been worse. This could have been a lot worse. I could have lost my family. Maybe you're a single individual, you're an elderly individual, and all you have is a pet. I could have lost my pet. That's my my person, the next minute you may be thinking, wow, why did this happen to me? And it's a normal reaction to question God and to ask, why did this happen? Doesn't mean God's going to get mad at you. It just means that you're going through that normal process, and it's going to take time. It's going to take time.
Absolutely.
If it's safe, don't try to go back into an area that is not safe. And hopefully, I know with our first responders, there's only so many first responders to go around. You can't be everywhere. Emergency management, military, the National Guard, they can't be everywhere to help with every single circumstance. But you've got to take a look at what you're going into. Is it safe for you to be there? If it's not safe, then don't go in there. Don't risk your life. Get with other family members. Reach out to your church. I think back to the tornadoes that happened back in 2012. And, several of the churches were destroyed in West Liberty. And the churches that maintained that their buildings were still intact and functioning, they reached out to the other pastors and said, hey, we want you to be able to have your services. Let's work out a schedule. And they worked out schedules so that, maybe the Christian church had their service at 9 a.m. and at 11, the Baptists had their service, or at 12, maybe Catholics had their service. So it's about working together as that community and reaching out to one another. There are places out there that'll help. There are shelters that are set up. Don't be ashamed to go to a shelter. If you need that help, go. It's better for you to be safe. It's better for you to be someplace where you have the ability to sleep. You have that ability to start to rebuild. And by rebuild, maybe not necessarily your home at that point, but rebuild yourself, to re-energize yourself, to be able to meet up with those resources. We have, and I'm sure most other places do this as well, but we set up it's kind of like a one-stop shop resource center. And so they'll have like cleaning supplies there for people, like buckets with cleaning supplies in it. They may have somebody from FEMA there. They may have somebody from the local community mental health center there. They may have somebody from our agency to be able to just do a one-on-one with someone. And they may have someone from the health department that, may give tetanus shots, because I think sometimes people forget that this can also be a dangerous situation for them in dealing with the floodwaters and dealing with the mud and anything else that's out there. And so it becomes one place where they can go and they can kind of get all of the help that they need, so that they're not having to go, down the road, or, oh no, that's being held in another county, so you'll have to go there. It just makes it easier on individuals in what is already a very uncomfortable and a very sad situation for them. So I would say that, first and foremost, you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to obviously take care of your family. When it's safe, you can go in there and you can take care of the things that you need to take care of with your home. Maybe you are able to save some things, and maybe you're not able to save some things. And that also, I think, perpetuates the grief, because of the fact that not only have you been through this flooding and you've had to leave, but now you've lost everything. So you have to be gentle on yourself. I'd say that's a big thing, is be gentle with yourself. Because it can be a long process. I can remember, with the tornadoes that, there were first responders who obviously were having to go into places in the hollows. Eastern part of Kentucky is Appalachian and has a lot of hollows and a lot of places that I think, unless you saw it above it. If you were flying around in a helicopter, you would not necessarily know they existed. And there may not be a home around for miles, and it may be very difficult to get to that place. And there were first responders who were going in and trying to find people and having to deal with things that typically they would not have to deal with. And anybody, I think, that's been through a tornado, and I have not been through a tornado and I've not experienced this myself, but from what I'm told is tornadoes are not very friendly to people. And so having to deal with what they've seen on top of trying to figure out how do I help this individual who is already deceased? How do I get this person where they need to go? Added a lot of stress on top of already dealing with being up for hours and hours. So, one of the things I would say about dealing with disasters and dealing with big events is this. You have to take care of yourself. You've got to make sure you're having that sleep and that diet. Don't make big decisions right now. Maybe your vehicle was destroyed and you're going to need a vehicle. But this isn't the time to go out and buy that $40,000, $50,000 vehicle you've always wanted, because you're functioning on kind of a different level right now. Reach out to other individuals, and the things that we saw and the things that we dealt with were the fact that, sometimes I think people neglected to make sure they took care of their health needs as well. And, if you're out there and you're feeling heart palpitations, you're out there, you're feeling sweaty. I mean, unless you're working, where you're going to sweat. If you're just feeling really sweaty, you're feeling lightheaded, you're having stomach aches and things like that, pay attention to those things because they're all saying something to you. It's very normal after this. And one of the groups that we were doing, one of the trainings I was doing one night down in West Liberty, that had to do with the parents were for the kids. They had always been told that the trees would protect them, the hills would protect them from tornadoes. They were used to flooding, but they were not used to tornadoes. And when the tornadoes came through, it didn't protect them.
Yeah.
And so, some of the parents were like, now I feel like my child's not ever going to believe me again. And, it's just making sure that you do the same things you would normally do as a parent, making sure that you try to ease their hurt, making sure that you talk to them about stuff. Doesn't mean that you want to elaborate and you want to have several conversations a day. Probably the biggest thing with kids is getting them back to a normal routine, because of the fact that they're used to having some normalcy. So making sure that they were able at that point to get them back to school, making sure that, the family meal was still held at the same time, getting them back into bed at the same time. Teachers ask, what do we do with the kids at school? They're going to be nervous. How do we handle this? And it's like, if you need to take a few minutes each day, you need to take a half an hour each day to just allow kids to talk. That's fine. Allow them to talk, but don't focus on it and get stuck on it. Yeah. And, one of the things we found is rumors. Rumors were just all over the place. There were rumors that certain things maybe had taken place and the kids were worried about that. And once we were able to kind of demyth them, then they were able to move on and everything was all right. When we're looking now, however, let's throw in a pandemic. We've got a pandemic where most kids have been out of school for an entire year. as far as being in a school building itself. They're now at home. They're getting education on a computer. Some of our students are not able to even get on a computer because the internet is not helpful for them. They can't get the broadband. They can't get it to stay moving. They've lost all of that contact with their friends. And, kids need to have that ability to get with other kids. And they're just now beginning to really send kids back to school here. I'm not really sure what it's like in the rest of the United States, but for here in Kentucky, they're sending certain grades back, and they're talking about sending more back in April, and then they get out in May. So, you've got kids that are home all the time. You have parents who, if they're lucky enough to be able to telework, can be there with them. If not, then you have these added stressors of parents who don't have the ability to be home with their kids. They're having to hire somebody maybe to stay with their kids during the day, or they're needing to do different schedules. Like some schools are done by 12. And so then they're leaving and having to go to work. The unemployment that's taken place. I honestly don't know how healthcare workers and first responders have kind of dealt with all of this, because they're out there with COVID in their face every single day. And then they have families at home to go to. And do they have fears that they'll be bringing the COVID home? Sure, absolutely.
We've been seeing it on our level too. I think you would agree. A lot of times, and when you talk about the pandemic, it's almost like dead even line in line with how natural disaster issues are.
Yes.
First responders, healthcare, military, they always put their own needs to the back burner.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
that can be a bad thing, especially if they're affected by either COVID
Yes.
or
yes.
a disaster. So going down that path, just some of the stress reactions that we've talked about already, pay attention to them. Kelli, you agree?
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to go and talk with somebody about it.
Exactly.
I know that it has been taboo to some degree, and it's understandable for our first responders to go and talk to somebody, and yet, at least through the PCISs, I'm seeing that, a lot of first responders are more open to going and talking to somebody about what's going on with them. And in general, I would say, even if you just go in and you talk with somebody, you may find that just in that one conversation that they've given you some thoughts. By your talking with them, they've given you maybe some ideas. You all have talked about different things that, you don't need to go back. And I'll say that's one of the things that we've kind of done with the pandemic as well, because we provide services to first responders. We provide that critical incident stress management to first responders. We do provide it to the schools. We do provide it to the communities. So one of the things that we did is that I teamed up with the Department of Behavioral Health. In Kentucky, it's a little bit different. In Kentucky, the Department of Behavioral Health, Developmental and Intellectual Disabilities is the mental health authority for all events. However, their commissioner has signed a paper that basically names us as the mental health authority for disasters.
Right.
And so they're the mental health authority for everything else. We're the mental health authority for disasters. We're the lead agency for critical incident stress management for disasters and for incidents, for critical incidents. And so one of the things that we have done is I teamed up with the Department of Behavioral Health with someone there, And we were able to provide a lot of services out there to the long-term care facilities. And so one of the people in the office, and here my dog, one of the people in our office developed some brochures that were COVID specific that could be sent out to various places in Kentucky. So we've kind of shot those out. The Secretary of the Cabinet for Health and Family Services had asked that there be a plan put in place that could be used throughout all the long-term care facilities. And so the other person that I worked with really kind of developed a lot of this. And so it's something that has been used to help those facilities who have had hot zones, who've had a lot of individuals that have had COVID, to be able to reach out and take care of their own, to help the supervisors, to help keep the morale there. It's a behavioral health resiliency plan for them. And it addresses different things like, what do you do if you've had staff that have been out and need to come back in now that, they're clear from COVID? What are their anxieties going to be? What are their fears going to be? And so with that, we've also provided a number for them, and we have a 24-hour number that we use. And that number, if somebody calls, that number automatically transfers to my cell phone. And so it kind of works out well, to be honest with you. As a qualified mental health professional, when that call comes in, then I'm kind of able to do a little bit of a triage and figure out, does this person need immediate help where I maybe need to go ahead and get them to a hospital? Or does this person need immediate help that a mobile crisis unit could work with? Are they suicidal? Are they not suicidal? Do they have some anxiety that's going on? What is that anxiety? Is that anxiety obviously related to what is going on? Or is it more an anxiety disorder? And so once I kind of figure that out, then we have about 250 people that are on our team that are behavioral health, first responders, chaplains specific to first responders, chaplains in hospitals, retired military, educators. We have a canine crisis companion, or a canine crisis compassion team. Always get my words jumbled up with them.
But there's a couple of those around too. We've seen them in the upstate of South Carolina. I think Greenville Sheriff's Office has one. So yeah.
Yeah, they're excellent. They actually go through training to become therapy dogs, and then they take the nationwide training where they have to go through a lot more stuff to be able to work with individuals. And I can tell you, it's been very interesting. At one of our annual team trainings, I was standing there talking to somebody, and I was totally unaware that one of our dogs had come up to me. And it was in talking later to the team member who has the dog, who has Ziggy. She said, I just want you to know that as soon as he hit the building and he came up the ramp and he came directly to you. He hit on you. And I was like, really? And she said, yeah, you must have had a little bit of anxiety or something going on because he came directly to you. And it's what they do. They go to the person they feel like is having some stuff going on. And I thought, And after I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, I did have a little anxiety that day with what was going on and the training and stuff that was going to take place. So they're excellent. They're wonderful. I've seen them work with kids. We talk about West Liberty. I saw a child who had a cut that literally went, straight down from the top of his head down here. And he really didn't want to talk. He came up and asked if he could pet the dog. And while he was petting the dog, he started talking to me. And as it turned out, he and his family had been in a trailer. And when the tornado came, it lifted the trailer up in the air, ended up flipping it several times. So he got tossed from one end of the trailer to the other end of the trailer. I mean, little fellas, I mean, at the time, very lucky it didn't kill him. And it cut open his head here. As he talked and he was talking about that, he went from petting the dog to the dog was on the floor to he was laying on the dog to he was telling more about the story. So, you know, the dogs, as you've seen, are just fantastic with helping people, not only the kids, but there are adults to open up and feel more comfortable in talking.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a plus. So, you know, the rest of our team, you know, we have massage therapists there. So one of the two things I always get asked when I'm doing an overview about our team or talking about our team is, oh, did you bring the massage therapist and the dogs? You bring those two and I guess everything's okay.
Oh, yeah.
So we have had people that have called, that have reached out because of the pandemic and called that number. And so after I do that triage, then I turn around and figure out who would be the best fit for them to talk with. If it's somebody that is having some anxiety and I figure, you know, they might need a little bit more, I may hook them up with a team member who actually is behavioral health. If not, I reach out to our other team members. Just so you're aware, all of our team members have to be trained in SISM. So they all go through that assisting individuals in crisis intervention. And the assisting class, as you know, teaches the SAFER model, which is a way to be able to do a one-on-one. People may say, well, I know how to talk to somebody. Well, yeah, but what it is it's very focused. Whereas we're helping that individual really to be able to figure out what it is that's going on with them, where they need that help them to pinpoint what they can do to help themselves. Because the reality of it is, and you know this, that with disasters, we're only going to be there for a certain amount of time. And our agency is not a long-term mental health team. So it's being able to have that one-on-one. It also, in the group crisis intervention, our team is trained in that. So that is where you learn the interventions, where you're either just giving information or you're sharing information. You're having a back and forth conversation. And that's where we do, as you know, the diffusing and the critical incident stress debriefing. And they all have to be trained in this if they want to work with critical incidents. And quite honestly, I'm very specific about who I patch up or match up with somebody. So, for example, if it's law enforcement, and say it has been an officer-involved shooting, it makes more sense to hook them up with a team member who also has been through an officer-involved shooting versus hooking them up maybe with, and this is no offense to anybody who maybe their entire career has been as a school resource officer.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have that understanding and kind of that, they know how they felt with this. They know what they went through. And while it's a different circumstance, they can also talk with that individual about, here are some of the things I went through. Here's how I handled some of this stuff. And when that person, and when we find that person talks back with them and we've talked about some of those common reactions, one of the biggest things we hear all the time is, wow, it's just good to know that I'm not crazy. It's good to know that I was beginning to think I was the only one.
Oh, yeah. That's one thing we talked about before. We talked about how the importance of pairing peers to peers is a big
Yes.
deal. It is a big deal.
Yes,
We
it
bragged
is.
about how the relationships between Kentucky, Texas, Carolinas, Georgia, both Carolinas, North and South, Georgia, getting up around Virginia with Kit and them. So you've got the availability of peer team members of all kinds. So
Yes.
we talk about how we pick on Eric Skidmore. If Eric Skidmore needed a left-handed 5'2" female shooter who shot a 6'8", guy,
Mhm.
Eric's probably going to know somebody. He knows who to call in Kentucky. I mean, that's what
Yep.
it's all about. So yeah, you're
Yes, it
hitting it.
is. It is. And, I think it's vital that that's there. It's really interesting because, we found recently that, our team, because our team is not just law enforcement. I mean, we have fire, we have EMS,
Yep.
we have dispatch. When I am coordinating a response, one of the things that happens is whoever I'm speaking with on that other end, I will ask them, not because I really want to know the details, but I'll ask them the details because it's important for me
Yep.
to know that, so that then I'm able to try to pair the best peer with them. The other part of that is, we get a lot of call from fire, and fire will often include EMS, they'll include law enforcement. And I will say to them, have you thought about including dispatch? Have you thought about including the county coroner? Because here in Kentucky, I could run for coroner and be elected and have absolutely no medical experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
And can you imagine, you've never had any medical experience. You've retired and this is going to be your, something you want to do. And all of a sudden you're out there on a really horrible fatality car wreck. I mean, they have to have somebody to talk with as well.
Oh yeah. I agree.
And so it's vital. The other thing we've kind of started doing too, and I started this about a year ago, and then everything's been crazy with the pandemic, so it's been a little bit different. But I reached out whenever they will call, whether it be fire chief or it'll be police chief or whomever, and want a response. I will also ask them after we're finished figuring out, when we want to have this event, who all's going to be there, how many are going to be there, what's the best time for it, make sure we have the correct address and everything. I will ask them, how are their spouses and families doing? Because we know that that's vital, that they also get that help. And we have a spouse team. It's kind of a family support team. We have fire spouse on it. We have several law enforcement spouses on it. And as well as I know that if you come from a first responder family, that family probably also needs to be treated by somebody, by a mental health person, if needed, who is very familiar with first responders.
Yeah.
Because they're just, first responders are normal people, obviously, things are a lot different for you all. And
there's actually pros and cons to being from a first responder family.
Yes.
You learn a lot of the mistakes. The cons being, though, that sometimes you continue those mistakes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Would you there? I agree.
I always tell our families, you need to reach out. And yes, there will be some of your EAPs, and EAPs are great for certain things. And I'll say employee assistance program for those who don't know. The EAP is something that can be wonderful for your, I think, non-first responder families. Your first responder families really need to have somebody who understands first responders, because it is a lot different. The things that kids will go through, and going back to the officer involved shooting, kids go through a lot sometimes when that's happened. And, you've got the first responder who's worried about everything and what's going to happen to me and how's this going to go. And then you've got the spouse who may or may not know what's gone on. Kids may hear it from other kids at school. Everybody has an opinion, good or bad. And it can really cause a lot of stress and a lot of grief for that entire family. And so I think it works better, at least from my opinion, if they go to somebody who, if they need to, who does understand, because others may not understand that. Oh, well, you may need to be put on medicine, or you may need to have this or that happen. And it may not always be the case. I would say one of the things that I think that is different here, at least in Kentucky, and I know we're kind of moving in a different path here, is, in Kentucky, our statewide law enforcement team, our KYLEAP, the Law Enforcement Assistance Program, is different than others in the sense that, when it was first thought of, Travis and Larry went to the South Carolina PCIS to kind of learn about it, sat at the table themselves, came back, approached my boss at the time and myself about having a team. And somebody had mentioned to them, well, they've already got a statewide team. As a matter of fact, our team will be 25 years old this year. And why reinvent the wheel? They already have things in place where they have law enforcement on the team. They already know how to do the applications. They already have the training. They already have the 24-hour number and on-call system. Why not house it under there? And so that's how kind of the KYLEAP team ended up under us. And so one of the privileges that I have had the past few years is that I've gotten to coordinate that program. I've gotten to literally kind of see this program grow. I have the ability to be able to go and train other law enforcement peer teams in the state. Currently, we have 3 other peer teams plus the state police peer team. And then we have another one I'll be training as well. And as part of that, part of the commitment of training them and providing that training to them, and by training, I mean the SISM, is that they also get on the statewide peer team and become a member of that, which is wonderful because it gives us additional individuals that we can use. And so we have had spouses that continue to get on that team as well. We have chaplains that are specific to law enforcement that may be on that team. And we have behavioral health people that are also on that team. So anybody that is a peer or a mental health person at our PCIS, at the KYPCIS, which is housed under the Department of Criminal Justice Training. I can't say enough nice things about that program and excellent things about it. But the behavioral health folks, at least 3 of them, and all the peers, including the spouses, have all been through the SISM training and are also on the statewide peer team, which is wonderful. And so one of the things that I have been able to do as a marriage and family therapist is that I've been able to also do a couples session at the PCIS so that individuals who bring their spouses have the opportunity, if they'd like, to have a marriage and family session, which has been, just wonderful. It's been great. I would say, that our team in general, just overall, we haven't typically just self-deployed. The only time we ever really typically self-deploy is in a disaster. And when the governor has declared a disaster, then because we are listed in statute at this point as the lead organization, we have that ability to just deploy to that. So we'll be deploying pretty soon, I'm sure, so that we can go down to some of those centers. And then right now, while they're starting to do cleanup and whatnot, we'll start getting people down on the ground and out there working with the people in those communities. So it'll be busy, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I would say one of the other areas that I think I've been lucky in doing is that I'm an approved instructor with the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. So I get to teach the assisting individuals, the group crisis intervention. Some of the other classes I really enjoy teaching are the pastoral crisis intervention 1 and 2 and the combo. And in Kentucky, in order to be a fire chief or a fire chaplain, or to be a police chaplain, one of the things that they ask is that they take those classes so that they have a better understanding of the CISM and better understanding of how to work with individuals. And I always enjoy doing those classes because I'm typically in the presence of many spiritual people who are just a joy to be around, and who always bring additional things that I haven't thought about into play. And so it's always a learning process for me as well. The last class that I get to teach is the law enforcement perspectives and CISM enhancement. And so I think that, you know, there are many reasons why I have enjoyed this position and enjoy this job, and just being able to give back and to help those who may need that help. And if I could just, you know, talk just a little bit about working with the marriage and family therapy. And, you know, one of the things that I think that I have learned, and I've learned this in my classes as well, is that, you know, first responders a lot of times don't want to talk with their spouses about what has happened or what has occurred. And I get that. But those individuals that you're coming home to are the individuals that should be able to support you 100%. And so I always ask them, you as spouses, would you be interested in knowing what your spouse, how their day has gone? And let's show, you know, hands, all the hands go up. You know, I'll ask the first responders, how come you don't share this? And they're like, you know, and it seems to be several different reasons. The biggest ones seem to be, I want to protect them. I don't want them to have to conjure up in their mind what I've seen or what has gone on. 2, you know, I try to leave work at work and home is home. And that, I get that completely. I'll say to the spouse, though, why do you want to hear this? And they say they want to hear it because they want to feel like they're a part of supporting and helping their spouse deal with whatever event or incident that has taken place, and to be there for them. And so then I'll ask them, how many of you just want to know, maybe, you know, it was a bad day. There was a car wreck. We lost some people. You know, a few hands will go up. How many of you all want more details about it? There'll be other hands that go up. So I guess I would say and encourage that there be a conversation. Ask them, do you want to hear? And how much do you want to hear? Because when things happen, if they happen, that is going to be the person that hopefully will be the person that's there, that's going to be able to support you and support you better by having some understanding. The other thing about it is, I would say, is, you know, communication is vital. I mean, you've got to talk, but there's also that time that I feel like the first responder needs to have that kind of decompression, or that time to come home and chill just a little bit before they have to switch from police officer mode to mom or dad. And that could be a 10-minute thing. It could be a 15-minute thing. I don't know if you've ever read Bill and Bill and Pam Farrell's book, Men Are Like Waffles and Women Are Like Spaghetti, or not.
I have not.
Okay.
That sounds interesting, though.
Well, it is interesting because what they say is that men very much are like waffles, because if you look at a waffle, you see all those squares. Okay. So men are very compartmentalized. Now, if you happen to be a first responder, also that's female, you can tend to be that waffle because things go in squares. I mean, you're compartmentalized and you have to do some of that. Women, on the other hand, tend to be, to some degree, spaghetti. And I'm not saying that this is our first responder women, because typically women that are first responders do fit the waffle mode. And so just an example of the spaghetti mode is this. You walk in the door and you come home and I go, "Oh, hi, Sarge. How are you doing? How was your day? Hey, did you stop by and get the laundry yet? I thought you were going to pick up the cleaning and supper on the way home. You're not going to believe what little Michael did today. He was just, I mean, he got into everything. Do you know I went to the store, and while I was at the store, do you know I ran into Carol, and do you know Carol and John are getting a divorce?" You're still at the door, back in that compartment of, "Hi, honey. How was your day?"
Yeah.
You're still back at your next compartment of, "Did I pick up the dry cleaning? No, I forgot to pick up the dry cleaning. Daggone it. Yes, I have the supper." And so if each individual kind of stood back and realized what that other person kind of is, I mean, we weave in and out of conversations, and we can go back to any part of that conversation and we know what we were talking about. It's one of those crazy things in spaghetti land. But the waffle, you're still back in that compartment and still trying to deal with all that. It's not a negative thing by any means, but understanding that communication style too can be very helpful. One of the things, and I've thought about this a lot, and I'm like, I'm not really sure how this little nursery rhyme came to be. You know, the nursery rhyme, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." Oh my gosh, that's so untrue. Words, bones will heal. Once that comment has come out, you can apologize all you want, but it's out there.
Oh, yeah.
And it stays there, and it can be very hurtful to an individual. So I always try to encourage couples to fight fair. If you're going to have a disagreement, don't go to bed angry. Take time to talk about it. Try not to say anything that once it's out there, you can't take back. Listen to the other person. Give that person that space if they need that space. Some people don't need that space when they come home, and that's okay. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. I had one spouse say to me, "Oh, is that why my husband comes in and he immediately sits down and has to play a PlayStation game?" And I'm like, "It could be." She said, "I did ask him one time, why are you doing this?" And he said, "Well, I just need to relax a minute. I need to just kind of de-stress." Okay. Take that time to de-stress. At some point, though, you got to stop playing PlayStation. 3 hours? No. You've got to start interacting with your family. Some of the other things that we kind of talk about is talking about that intimacy. That intimacy of just taking that time to be with that person, just sitting there with that person, taking time to recognize and hear that person, laugh with that person, joke with that person. If you're not having that, then you're not going to be having the other things that go along with marriage. You're not going to be able to have those wonderful, intimate moments because you're not doing some of this other stuff as well. So those are some of the things that, I kind of talk with them about. I will say that it's been very interesting that couples have wanted to take that time to talk about what's going on. And just maybe picking even one thing that they're having difficulty with and helping them to find out better ways to interact with one another so that they are capable of having a better relationship.
Well, I'm going to tell you, perfect. I'm glad I had you on the show for starters, because I know your specialty and I know your passion. Guys, we talked about COVID and natural disaster in the beginning, and of course it went right into Kelli's heart and background, which is family. All of this ties together. This all ties together. We talked a lot about PCIS. Kelli was dead on with this as well. PCIS isn't just for the traumatic incident that happened on duty. So PCIS, and if you haven't, the past shows have talked about PCIS a lot, post-critical incident seminar. If you're somebody who is looking for an avenue that needs to go to the next level beyond the peer one-on-one like Kelli was talking about, or even the diffusings and debriefings as a group related to an incident, if you feel like you need that next step and you need that care, it probably is PCIS, and it does not have to be work related. That's the biggest kicker about PCIS. Natural disasters are definitely in the realm of things that PCIS covers. First responder loses a house, or first responder, God forbid, loses a family member due to a natural disaster. PCIS is for you. Losing the house is a big deal.
Absolutely.
You know, the sad thing is, you know, we all fear, you know, house fire, but we know the percentages or the likelihood of that happening is very slim. I mean, houses are made to a certain standard, and we're not worried about as much, but we still have smoke detectors. We still protect ourselves. Natural disaster is a different ballgame. That is unpredicted. That is nature's wrath, and that's you're subject to whatever happens. You don't have a safety mechanism, so to say, like you would with a smoke detector. Yeah, you might have the National Weather Service send out alerts, but that's not for your house. That's just for your area. You may or may not see anything from that National Weather Service thing. So there's no alarm to you. But with that being said, it's more impactful. So if you feel like you need that, please keep that in the back of your you know, I like to say in the back of your toolbox, but on your tool belt, keep it ready for as an option for mental health. You need this. Kelli hit all over it. This is what we're talking about. The other thing, COVID. If you've gone through COVID, and Kelli talked about this, if you've gone through COVID, you obviously are going through the fear of dealing with it, either as a first responder, military, medical professional. You'll see often, and Kelli is about to nod her head yes when I say this, a lot of first responders and a lot of medical people tend to end up in the marriages together. So you got a lot of nurses that marry cops. You got a lot of firefighters that marry nurses. I mean, that's just nature of the beast, because it's a similar field of service, and it's the similar hearts that hit each other. So, but with that being said, there's a lot of fear of bringing COVID home to the other, or to the kids, or to the parents, or what have you. If you've gone through COVID and you've gotten past that point, do know that there are resources out there if you're struggling with the mental aftermath, because there is mental aftermath. This is not just to the first responder. It is also to the kids of the first responders. Kelli said it. The kids are, I mean, think about it. They thrive on friendships, relationships, just like adults do. And even more so to a degree, because it gives them their character and their individuality. But if they are having to stay home more and more, then that's putting a mental strain on them. So pay attention to your kids also. If they need some help, then please just ask. Kelli Robinson's I'm telling you, she's great when it comes to family crisis, to mental health with the family. She's a blessing in my world personally. So I'm glad she's on the show. I'm glad you joined the show. One thing I do ask Kelli from all of my guests is to take us to a close with something positive. Do you got something positive you can share with us today?
Sure. You know, I think probably the thing I would say is this: take time for you. Remember that you are important. Remember that there is nothing that is too crazy, for lack of words, too stupid, too embarrassing to not reach out and talk to somebody. You know, we're there for you. There are people that are there for you. Be kind to yourself. Realize that you're a blessing from above. Realize that, you know, there are people there who love you and care about you. And, you know, it may not be somebody you even know. Pray for one another. Be there for one another as you can. Try to laugh. You know, one of the things I always try to ask people and say to people is this: each night before you go to bed, I bet if you really looked at, you would be able to name 3 or 4 different things that didn't go right in your day, that were negative that day. Each night before you go to bed, write down 1 or 2 things that were positive. Maybe you can't think of anything that's positive. Well, guess what? Maybe you got out of bed that day. That's a positive. It may seem like it's little, but over time, when you start looking at things and you start writing down things and you look for the positive, then you're going to see more positive than you're going to see negative.
Absolutely.
So,
well, Kelli, thank you for being on the show. I really, really do appreciate it. I love your soul. I love you as a friend, and I do appreciate what you're doing in Kentucky. Definitely keep everybody safe up there.
Yeah.
Stay on the up and up, and, you know, call us if you need anything. We'll have vehicle. We'll travel. So.
Absolutely. Sarge, thank you for having me. I know it was a little scattered here and there, but, you know, there's so many things out there and so many different things to talk about.
Well, that just means we got to have you back.
That's right. That's it. I appreciate, you know, you're doing this. I appreciate you're taking the time to do this. I appreciate your understanding and seeing the worth in having family therapy and disaster talked about. You know, I love you dearly, and I'm now beginning to love your wife as well. Having had some encounters with her, it's like meeting an old friend. And next time I get to South Carolina, obviously I'll have to touch base with you, but you know, it's here too. You have my number. You need anything, don't hesitate to call. You have somebody that's got a family thing going on, don't hesitate to call. You got a first responder or a spouse that needs to talk, don't hesitate to call. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. And that's how we all are, folks.
That's right.
Thanks again for listening, friends. Let me tell you, we are greatly appreciative of your support of the SOS Show, the Striped Onion Show, and we are just as grateful for the friends we have inside our CISM network. Don't forget to share today's SOS call on your social media platforms. That is critical to getting the word out. And also make sure to leave some comments on whichever platform you listen to us on. We will respond to you. Visit our website at some point, thesosshow.com, and check it out. See what we have there. Sign up for the email notifications about shows and events we have coming up in the future. This is all about the first responders, about their support circles. So we want to make sure that it is impactful. And until next time, we hope everyone has a great day and a great week. Y'all stay safe out there, and God bless.